conjunction with our NATO allies or our American ally. Well, NATO. Yeah, okay. So while, yes, it's a lot of money, it's not in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Like I shudder to think what the U.S. would spend in its Navy for fuel. However, there is something else to consider. The military has its own police. And AJ makes a good point. First of all, the provost marshal is at the top provost in the country, or military policeman in the country is a colonel. Now, if he's investigating an admiral, can he be locked out of the investigation because he can't investigate somebody of higher rank? I don't think so, but that's a problem. Even if that was the case, easily solved. You just make the provost, the head provost guy, a general, or, a flag rank. And that way, all that issue goes away. But there's already a police force in the military to do this job. Why not just look at them and say, do your job, investigate this stuff?
That's a good question, Nick. And now that you've raised it, I hadn't thought of it, but it's entirely possible that it depends on how you define sexual misconduct. If you're talking about assault, you're talking about rape, that kind of thing, that clearly falls under the criminal code mandate of the military police.
Yes.
If you're talking about rude comments, okay, or what we might call sexual harassment.
Well, wouldn't that fall under inter-unit discipline?
Well, it would, but not necessarily. It may not be an MP problem.
No. When I say inter-unit,
right.
Let's take a ship. So,
right.
Leading seaman so-and-so made a rude remark about leading seaman so-and-so, and he gets hauled up in front of the captain or the XO, and they deal with it within the unit.
Right.
Which is the way this stuff is supposed to be dealt with. I'll call it a minor offense. I don't mean to make it mean nothing. It is a
minor offense.
Compared to rape, yes.
Without diminishing, nobody wants to diminish the significance of these kinds of things, of somebody, being lewd and rude.
Right.
Okay. That could be the description of a whole lot of sailors I used to know, and a whole lot of sailors I probably still know. Lewd and rude. I'm not diminishing any of that. I don't want to make light of that.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't want to exaggerate it either.
Yeah,
it's not on the same level as rape.
No, it's
or an actual sexual
This is
assault.
why I'm saying that in the cases of sexual assault or rape, that's a criminal offense. The MPs can handle that. And if they can't, they can turn it over to civilian authorities, because the military only has the ability to put you in jail for 2 years less a day at Canadian Forces Detention Barracks, Edmonton, a place you do not want to go. Because if you think the big house in Kingston was tough, these guys, wow. Anyway, so the point I'm making is there is a set of protocols in place to deal with this already. We don't need to spend more money on it. And this is part of what's thank you, AJ, for bringing that point up about the fact that we already have a military police who are at least as well trained as the RCMP, if not better. Now, I've run into some, we affectionately call them meatheads, one or two in my time. But all they were doing was their job. I was just a young little puke who didn't know any better, and they gave me a stern talking to. But it wasn't a lack of competence. It was just the situation I'd got myself into. Anyway, so this money going out the window could have been spent in 1,000 different places, even if you didn't spend it in the military, that would be far better served. Like, again, I go back to this idea of indigenous reserves in the northern communities with no potable water. It's embarrassing that we still have that issue. Why not spend it there? Why not put an extra $250 million into the military and allocate that for the troops in Latvia, so they have everything they need should Putin decide that he wants to come, and take out Latvia, or make some silly move in Eastern Europe. So you could do that. You could buy a fleet of trucks. You could do a whole host of things with it that would be much better spent than the way they're going to do this now. And they'll make a dog's breakfast of this too. I can tell you right now, because of this, people are going to have their career destroyed who have served this country with distinction for 10, 20, 30 years, and they don't deserve that.
You know, with that kind of money, Nick, you could give everybody in the military a $2,500 raise.
There you go.
More than $2,500.
Heck, you could buy. How many tanks could you buy for that? At about $2 million a copy. Well, about 12. How many? Well, you couldn't buy. Well, you could buy a modern fighter aircraft. You could put a big dent in the cost of building one of these new ships. All kinds of things. What about medical and dental staff, or into highly skilled trades retention?
But you know, I just want to circle back, Nick. You made just a minute ago, I think, a really good point, an excellent point, and that is that given today's environment, given the zeitgeist we live in, the woke society, okay, and the hyper woke government that we have, I could see this easily and quickly turning into a massive witch hunt.
I'm terrified of that.
Decent people, hardworking, hard-serving,
love their country, willing to sacrifice everything,
going to have their careers ruined.
Well, this is
over virtually nothing.
What I'm afraid of is this to become our version of the scandal that brought down a bunch. Some of them deserved it, I will admit, but you remember that when we believed the victim just because the victim said so, and a lot of people paid with their careers for that.
Right.
Now, in the case of some of them, they deserved it. They were the lechers that they were accused of being, but a lot of them, and it had a ripple effect. I haven't seen any numbers, but can you imagine how many women were not hired to the board or were not appointed to the board of top 500 Fortune companies because none of the guys sitting around that table wanted to go through that? How many secretaries weren't hired for the same reason? This really lowered the glass ceiling for a lot of women.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and that's a whole different topic to talk about.
It is.
Maybe we'll get into that next week.
But this is the consequences of bad economic decisions.
The budget talks, this particular budget, they're talking about mandating for corporate boardrooms governance, gender equality, ethnic equality, balance, etc. Not for private corporations, but
certainly for public ones.
So we'll have to get into that next week. I think that's a
good topic.
And you know, where are we going with this stuff? Is it really helping, or is it hurting the people it's intended to help? But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we're running out of time here. The 2 hours for the live broadcast have just gone so fast. So thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you as well. And don't forget to share it with your friends and family and neighbors. And Nick, over to you.
All right, folks. Well, that wraps it up for Joseph and I. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. And until next week, ubi caritas et amor, Deus sibi est. Good evening. God bless. Don't let anything disturb your peace. And may you have a fair wind and a following sea.